Okay, so just as a way of starting, stand in for a few moments, not being sort of rigorous with your posture, being comfortable in your standing posture. Maybe take a couple of slow, gentle breaths and just get a sense for your posture and the movement of the breathing, whatever else is going on, so that we get this awareness of our bodies. Basically, we bring our attention into our body and bringing that attention to the front of our mind, to foregrounding that attention. This is an important element of Tai Chi, one of the foundations. We go beyond this, but what we can get from this is this sense of settling, the sense of calming. I mean, there's any number of ways that we can describe it. And one of the things that I think is quite useful to think about is that we want to normalize this. The norm in our society is to rush, always rush from one thing to another, especially at this time of year. But actually, there's nothing wrong with being active, but we often do so at the expense of this other side of things. And in Tai Chi, the quietening, the stillness is an integral part of the activity. So emphasizing it brings it into the foreground, brings it into a kind of normal state. And that means that we're more likely to be able to come back to it in our daily lives. That stillness, shall we call it, actually makes us more aware of our posture, means we're able to be more aware of our posture. And what we want to do is to bring our weight forwards in our feet a little bit and just allow our hips to drop back a little bit. Just stop straining against the pull of gravity. There'll be a slight curve down through your knees, and this feeling of your centre of gravity dropping, rooting down, giving you both this sense of a grounding connection to the floor, the ground beneath you, and the physical stability that really helps with the movement. So we can become a bit more specific in that foregrounding, and again, we want to emphasize the lower part of the body to begin with, because it's often the bit that we miss. So aware of the center of your body dropping towards the ground, and then just beginning to turn in the center of the body. So, yeah, people, when you're more experienced with coming to my classes, you'll know that I use different languages, different terms, different images. No one description, no one image is ever going to be complete. So we pick the ones that are useful to us. I think one of the terms that I think of to encompass these qualities that we look for in Tai Chi, to cultivate in Tai Chi, is central equilibrium. But we use what is useful to us. And I've recently come across this idea of foregrounding, and I think it's an interesting image, this one. We can make a specific intention to be aware of our posture, to be aware of our movements. I sometimes liken it to reading a book in a room where there's people talking. And you're reading the book, you're aware of the background noise, there's no intention here, no suggestion that we're cutting ourselves off from the world. And if somebody said your name, you'll probably pick it up and say, oh, sorry, I missed that, sort of thing. But you're engaged with the book. This is at the front of your mind. And you're more likely to do that if it's a book that you're interested in. It's oh, well, I really like this book, kind of thing. And actually, you're more likely to get that foregrounding and everything that comes from it, the stillness, the centeredness, the root, and so on, with a sense of interest. So, can you bring a sense of interest to your body? What happens when I turn to the left? What happens when I turn to the right? Where do you feel the movements in your body. You feel the movements in your arms, other parts of your upper body. You may feel movements in your legs. And as we become more experienced in Tai Chi, we begin to get a sense for which of those movements are useful to continue with, to bring a sense of intention to continue them. Which do we want to lose? Which are the sort of habitual ways of moving and standing that aren't so useful? You know, maybe we're holding our back tight, and maybe we've been doing that for years. Maybe we're a bit stiff in our hips, and so on and so forth. So we can go beyond simple awareness and engage more with a process of cultivation, a process of change that begins to enhance our movements. So the stillness aids the movement. The movement can help you to engage with the stillness. It's not either or. And we sometimes think of qualities like still and calm and so on as slight luxuries. We'll do that when we've done everything that we need to do. And I think the phrase in Tai Chi I often think about is when it said in the old writings, seek the stillness within the movement. It doesn't say be still and then move. It points us at an idea that stillness and movement are two sides of the same coin. So being calm, being still, taking a moment to cultivate those qualities isn't a luxury. So just feeling your body settle into a nice steady rhythm. Notice that when you turn in one direction, say you turn to your right, and then that means that here I've got an extension through my body there. I just allow that to contract, and that pulls me the other way. So the movement in one direction creates the potential for the movement in the other. And we just allow that to happen rather than forcing the movement. These early exercises that we do point us at some essential qualities in the art. And they're often more accessible to us, I think, with these simple, slightly faster movements. We can feel the effect of the expansion and contraction that I just described. We can feel the effect of the rhythm in our bodies sometimes, and that rhythmic quality resonates through the body. We can feel from both of those this sense of movement, of energy building in the body. These are all things that we're asked to try and find, to cultivate in the slower movements, where it is, I think, just a little bit trickier in a lot of cases. But if we have a sense of what we're aiming for, then it's going to become more accessible. At the same time, you're doing a standard kind of warm-up, letting the blood circulating a little bit. There's a very gentle aerobic quality to this that will have an effect on your breathing. It's just this one simple exercise, but it can contain a lot. It's something that we can maybe just sort of think to ourselves, well, okay, I'll do this for a couple of minutes each morning, sort of thing. So it doesn't have to be complicated, and certainly at the start we're not talking about hours and hours, just taking that little bit of space for yourself. Now, turn your hand palm forwards, raise them up a little. Sometimes it's easier in this posture, with your arms in a fixed position, to feel the link, the connection between what's happening in the centre of your body, and by extension in the ground, how that affects your arms, your hands, your fingers. And then letting your hands drop. Put one foot forwards. Moving your weight, a gentle push against the ground. As you get more experience, the term push actually becomes a little bit redundant. It's more to do with the springiness in the legs. But to start off with, a push against the ground really emphasises this idea of moving from the ground, using that connection to the ground, the root, to, in a way, to initiate the movement. It's in your upper body, just follow this. Maybe you want to make adjustments to your posture to enhance this. Feet should be hip width, left to right apart, and about the same, maybe a little bit longer in length. So we begin to realise through that focused attention that posture and movement are very interconnected. And then on the other side, those movements could be the big movements that you see, the mechanics of the movement, joints, muscles and so on. Could be movements like your breathing that would be affected. Or once again, that slightly more subtle sense of a connected movement from your feet to the top of your head, to your fingers, the flow, the energy. And again, going faster, we get that sense of momentum, which is really just a way of describing energy moving quickly, isn't it? Again, shake out. So the standard parallel posture is again, feet hip width apart, toes pointing forwards. Your weight a little bit forwards in your feet. And if I exaggerate that, you'll see how it causes my body to angle forwards. Now I'm tightening up in my calf muscles, I've gone too far. But we neutralise that by just allowing the hips to drop back. Feeling that allowing the hips to drop actually helps us to come to an upright stance with a lot less strain. We're still using the upper body, it's not passive, but we're not having to sort of tighten up in our shoulders and our back. Feeling that your legs are supporting you, your centre of gravity dropping so there's less weight in the upper part of the body. Feeling that your back supports the front of your body, so try not to pull your belly in or tighten across your chest. And increasingly aware of a support from within the body, your skeleton and the surrounding area, continuing to support you as you're able to release some of the tightness and stiffness, particularly in back and shoulders. You may feel an effect on your breathing as a result of this. So then just let your hips drop back a little bit more, being careful not to overdo the bending of your knees till you feel the push up. So as we sink down, our legs are compressed. Imagine your legs as being like a piece of bendy wood, like a willow twig or something like that. And if you get a willow twig and you put one end into the ground and you bend it, then as long as you don't bend it too far and break it, what will happen is at a certain point it will start to expand and push back. And when the legs start to expand, we feel our feet pushing into the ground. At the same time, our hips are pushing up, pushing our upper body up. So we feel that direct connection through the movement, the connection from our feet up into our upper body. And of course, at this stage, your arms are by your sides, but there's still a little bit of movement there. They're still following your shoulders, of course. So there's that movement, that energy from the ground reaches your arms and your hands. Trying to feel that your centre of gravity is able to drop a little bit every now and then as your hips sink down. And then bringing your hands around, and as you push up, the expansion in the upper part of your body, pushing your elbows out, as though you're just drawing the ball up turn your hands over, let your hips drop, so you're pushing the ball down into water. So the main feature of this exercise is this dropping of your centre of gravity, the rooting down. Hence the name of the exercise, rooting down. Importantly, this really helps with our stability. The lower your centre of gravity, the more stable you are, the less weight you have to carry in the upper part of the body. It's also important, as we're discovering, that the sinking down, the rooting down, loads the legs. And without that, we don't get the same sense of a movement and energy arising. And just thinking in terms here that there are 4 stages in the movement. 2 are obvious, an upward movement and a downward movement, but between each one, there's this little moment of settling here while the arms turn. And at the top of the movement, arms turning, just aware of the pull of gravity on the hips. These are little moments when we can return to that foregrounding of an awareness of our posture. Little moments of quietening, of stillness. Beginning to recognize that, once again, they're not separate from the movement. In fact, they're integral to the movement. Without them, the movement just wouldn't happen in this way. Once again, normalizing those moments. Those moments are not a luxury. And they are literally moments. I've been emphasizing them, so they might take a couple of seconds just to get that feeling. But if you practice in this way, they'll just become, as I say, normal. And they're really moments of intention. And intention is quicker than thought. So, we sometimes think we haven't got time to rest, we haven't got time to be still. But it's almost no time whatsoever. Now, changing the movement, turning your fingers out, and as you push up, the intention is for that expansion in your body to push your arms out, not to lift your arms, but to push them away from your body. And what will happen is they'll swing up. So this means that this movement, it's actually quite a strong movement in arms and shoulders. It starts to be very smooth. This is the wild goose. So, of course, one of the ways that we use intention is to use the qualities of images that we resonate to kind of enhance the movement. So if the image of the bird in flight is useful too, you can use that. And then changing again, as you settle in, just let your hands drop, feeling the push up. This time again, your elbows pushed away, drawing your fingers around in a smooth circle. This is parting the clouds. Trying not to think of this in terms of having to lift your arms, but rather feeling that they're sort of pulled out. This isn't to suggest that there isn't a strength within the movement. The physical side of the art is very important. We have these 3 so-called treasures of body, the mechanics of the movement and the posture, aspects of mind and awareness and tension, and the movement, the flow, the energy, blending with each other. One more time. And then letting your arms drop down, but feeling your center drop down. And as you push up, bringing your tension, your intention to one side again, your elbow drawing your fingers up, winding around, and then pulling down. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Once again, as your arm settles, tension coming to the center of your body and then to the opposite side. So rather than thinking this is going left, right, left, right, left, right, again, inserting that moment of just awareness of your center and the connection to the ground. And again, when we emphasize it, it can feel as though the flow gets broken a little bit. But as it becomes more habitual to us, it just takes almost no time at all. And yet it's crucial because without the sinking down, there can be no push up. One more on each side. The other thing about that moment of centering, of grounding, it just helps to neutralize that sense that somehow we have to rush at this. Okay, now bringing your hands to the sides, lightly touching that the sides of that center part of your body. And there, expanding upwards. This next movement and the one after, hips are just hanging back. You're not going down any deeper, so you've still got that sense of a downward movement through your body. Touching the sides of your body, pushing out from the center and turning a little bit. Noticing how the center of the body once again directs your arms. So I'm putting the emphasis on that foregrounding, shall we call it, that centering, coming at the end of each contracting stage. That's probably the most accessible time to find it, but particularly people with more experience. We can find it here, for instance, this sense of pushing up. Here, and then here, so we can find it at the end of each stage. I mean, ideally, we would never lose it. But I'm kind of assuming that everybody's like me, which is that these things can be very elusive. But we can learn that there are moments, regular moments, where taking no time whatsoever, we can return to this quietness, this spacious quality. And essentially just continue moving and continue feeling that sense of movement within the body, the flow of the energy. Which now what we're learning to do is through the centre of the body, direct it in certain ways. One more round. Let your hands drop down, feel the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders, and then with the expansion, once again, one arm being pushed away from your body, swinging around and up, soften your shoulder, and then down. Take your time, let your arm hang down, feel its weight hanging down, and then let the movement push your arm away. It's simply called circling palms. It's quite a tricky movement. But when we take that moment just to settle and we can feel the expansion in the body, we realise that actually it is possible to do this without having to strain. And then this time, turning. Then this time, switch into the other side. And then add in the turn. So this one and the previous exercise show how the movement in the centre of the body, which the centre of the body becomes an increasing point of focus, can have an effect right the way through the body. Now for the next two movements, the rotation that we're looking for in the centre of the body is a vertical one. So just try this, just push your hips back a little bit, your pelvis will tilt, your head and shoulders go forwards. And then see if you can use the pull of gravity, being aware of the pull of gravity on your hips, allowing your centre of gravity to drop down, to root down, allowing your hips to drop back. How all of that can actually help you to come to an upright position with a lot less strain, without having to stiffen up in your back. It's still strong in the back, so do be careful with this. So we're going to use this in the next two movements. Just let your hips sink down. Push up, your arms being pushed out again. And then as you sink down, let your hips go back a little bit, extending through your back, your arms. This is rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. You don't have to go very far for this. I'm going quite far so that hopefully you can get a sense for the mechanics of the movement. But just go as far as you're comfortable. It's a strong movement in knees and in back, and this is fine. It could be just quite a small movement. So increasingly thinking of this process of foregrounding, one of the things that is constantly there is the centre of our body. It's almost as though that central part of the body is the position for our attention that enables us to look out and see the whole of the body. One more time. And then hands palm down, horizontal turn, and then the push back, pushing your arms forwards, swinging around and back to the upright position, polishing the table. If I turn round, you see what my hips are doing here. Again, I'll exaggerate, pushing the hips back, swinging them across, letting them drop down, and then turning back to the front. Think how useful this action would be. If the name says it, doesn't it? Polishing the table. Those many times when we have to lean out a little bit, and I bet we've all done that sometimes and sort of tweaked a muscle or something like that. One more time. And then just coming back and standing for a moment. Once again, coming back to that overall sense of your body in the front of your attention. And shake out. As a martial art, Tai Chi is very concerned with application. All martial arts obviously are concerned with application, but so there are applications that don't necessarily involve having to break somebody's arm or something like that. Just simple things like how do we reach out without straining ourselves? How do we come to an upright position without stiffening in our shoulders? And our ability to sort of realise that, again, is very dependent on this quietening, stilling, foregrounding process. So it becomes integrated, becomes normalised. It is no longer the kind of luxury item that we would do when everything else is done. Now, changing the stance again. From the hip stance, imagine parallel lines going through your feet, tram lines we sometimes refer to them as. Turn one foot out and step forward with the other foot, again about the same in length as in width. And once again, beginning to transfer your weight. When I did this earlier, I talked about pushing against the ground, and there's nothing wrong with that image, as long as you don't push too hard and push yourself over. But as we become more familiar with this, and as we give ourselves a little bit more time to feel what is going on, once again, we feel that sense of compression in the leg, like the willow branch being gently bent, and then the expansion that pushes up into the hip and pushes us in to the other foot. The stillness, if you like to think of it like that, the foregrounding, again, pick the term that is most useful to you, actually helps to create the potential for the movement. It's not a separate thing. Another phrase that I like to use from the old Tai Chi writings, one that I'm particularly fond of actually, is it says, "Be still as a mountain, move like a great river." It doesn't say, "Be still as a mountain," and then start moving. And it doesn't say, "Be still or move." It's very clear. Still as a mountain, move like a great river. You know, these two halves, the yang and the yin half, if you like, are not separable. And I think it's one of the very distinctive features of Tai Chi and Qigong done in this way, that for all it's a very dynamic art and a very physical art, there was also this meditative aspect, this quietness, this stillness. We become used to various triggers. To the arrival of our weight in one foot, for instance, could be the trigger for just that moment of settling. Turn into your back foot and gently raise the front toes and you settle back a little bit more. You can have the front foot very slightly turned out here. You go forward, push the back knee in, heel comes up, your body just shifts slightly, so you're coming more into line, more rooted down, over one leg. And then stepping in. Push out your front foot, your heel goes down, the ball of the foot, press gently into the ground. You plant the foot, go forwards. Same thing with the back foot, except it's going to be the ball of your foot that goes down first. The planting is that moment of just really connecting with the ground beneath your foot. Interestingly, sometimes at this time of year when it gets slippery underfoot, advice from the NHS is to take slow, careful steps so you don't fall over. Shake out. Now with the other foot forward. So start in the parallel stance. Imagine the parallel lines. Step forward. Realizing again, posture, stance is an important element here. So as you go forward, you may find, and I sometimes find, I've stepped a bit long, or not long enough, or not wide enough, or too wide, or something like that. It's a bit like if you're going to go out and you put a coat on, and you just sort of like move the coat around, and so that it kind of fits properly. Give yourself time to do that, and the very act of doing that is actually what I've been describing as foregrounding. These different elements are not linear. You could almost imagine them as points around a circle, all connected to each other in various ways. Beginning to raise your toes and your heel. And then stepping in, planting the foot, remember. Take a few steps through, either forwards or backwards, depending where you have room. And then going back. Oops. Try not to trip over the floor covering there. Okay, and then shake out. A couple of years ago, about this time of year, day very much like today, it got cold and dark and wet, and it was the end of the week. I was a bit tired at the end of the week, and I had to go and do some shopping. And I was walking down the road, and I was kind of a bit slumped over, kind of dragging my feet a little bit in the way that we do. And I suddenly thought to myself, hold on, I've been telling people to do this differently all week. You know, I'm a Tai Chi teacher and things like that. And with the thought came the change. It was interesting because it was just as quick as that. You know, I didn't suddenly stand in the middle of the street and spend half an hour doing Tai Chi. It's a change in intention. And I wasn't about to run a marathon, and it was still raining, and I was still tired. But my response to it was different. So if we practice these things, if we normalize these qualities, then they're much more accessible to us in our daily lives. They're much more likely to be applied, and this is important. So, you know, this is a living art, and what we want to be able to do is to find ways to take what we learn in the art, and it's lovely having the dedicated sessions, the dedicated practice, but the real proof of this art is in our daily lives in one way or another. So now, stand with your right foot forwards, mirroring my movements, and start with your weight in your back foot, ease forwards and just letting your arms swing through, and then going back. So this is quite challenging. This is a very simple exercise. It's called Fisherman Cast a Net. The real challenge here is to make sure that being aware of your upper body, in particular your arms and your hands, doesn't eclipse your awareness of your whole body, and in particular this movement of your weight. Feeling that sense of a gathered attention, and then realizing the value of that gathered attention. So fisherman cast the net. We're not lifting our arms. Well, I'm not lifting, I'm trying not to lift my arms. But what happens is, of course, our arms swing through. And as they swing, they naturally curve upwards. And as they do that, just notice what's happening in your back, your sides, the front of your body, because there'll be subtle changes there, patterns of expansion and contraction, patterns of movement, of energy, that we can bring an awareness to and a sense of intention to. These are patterns that emerge through copying the external movement, but which we can begin to bring our intention to, so that we begin to build the movement from inside out. It's said in Chinese medicine that the energy will follow the thought and body will follow the energy. Thought I would reinterpret as intention, and I would actually put those three elements not in a linear sense, but mutually supported. I think of them as a tripod. Each leg of the tripod is as important as any other. Each leg supports the other two and is supported by the other two. Where we place our intention, where we place the emphasis, can vary according to our particular circumstances, but all are present. The fisherman cast a net. We can also learn to direct internally. It's not just about the external movement. Is there an area, maybe in your back or shoulder or whatever, that feels a bit tight, a bit blocked? An intention to flow. We sometimes describe the quality of the movement as being like a moving massage, or as though the body were being gently bathed internally. I sometimes think of water flowing over a rock in a riverbed, gradually wearing it away. So we can start to bring about subtle changes within the body. So now, as your arms swing up, once again turning to your left and letting that redirect the movement. Hands coming down, your body contracting, sink into your back leg, turn to your right. This is called Wind Blows the Willows. And earlier I used the image of a willow branch. Willow trees are a common image in these arts. Willow trees said to have very deep roots, supple wood. It's said that in a high wind, the willow tree will bend and then spring back eventually, whereas other trees will just get blown over. Remember, you're not lifting your arms. Your intention is for the expansion in your body to push your arms away from the body. Very similar in some ways to the wild goose. Okay, and then just shake it. The phrase again from the old writings in Tai Chi is that the movement is rooted in the feet. And remember, the root isn't just that physical thing, it's the quietness, it's the stillness. It's transmitted through our legs. That compression and expansion, as I described it, there's many other ways it could be described. Directed, focused, guided through the centre of the body, the area between sort of pelvis and hips and waists, the area that we want to drop towards the ground, that location point for the stillness, if you like to think of it like that, and then expressed in our upper body and arms. And this is the formula that runs through the whole art. So let's try those two movements with the other foot forwards. So starting off with Wind Blows the Willows. And this simple movement really does offer benefits for long-term practice. It means that we're able, without too many complications, to just do the movement and let our attention go deep within the body. Can you feel what your bones are doing? Bones are living tissue. We often think of them as just these solid lumps, but there are blood vessels feeding the bones. Bone cells are being made and taken apart almost on a constant basis. Some of the bigger bones how's the mechanisms for things like the white corpuscles, important for the immunity of the body, for instance. So then we're going to change into Wind Blows Willow. And then combining this with the step-in that we did earlier, go in either direction. I'm going to go forwards. I've turned my front foot out a little bit. As you turn, bring the empty foot in. Step out and plant the foot, going forwards, letting the arms drop, turning, bringing the empty foot in. Just aware of your posture at this point. And maybe, if you're comfortable with this, bring the foot in and then just raising the leg. The thing, if you're interested in standing on one leg, for instance, recognize that the thing that is going to enable that, the thing that is going to enhance that, is the stillness. This is called dragonfly skims the water. It doesn't matter if you're not raising the leg. Everything else is still true. And then going back. And then bringing your feet back and shake out. Now, just standing comfortably, rubbing your hands together. This little tapping exercise that we often do is actually a very simple way of achieving this foregrounding that I mentioned at the beginning. Starting just by tapping over your face with the pads of your fingers, over your head and neck, down to one shoulder, and then down the inside of your arm and up the outside. I do this in a particular order, but you don't have to do it in this order. So this could be a very simple way to normalise that awareness, that stillness. Change to the other side. You could do it standing as we're doing, you could do it seated, you could do it laying in bed, onto your back, very gently on the lower part of your back, working around your hips, and then going down your legs. I'd go down the outside of my legs and up the inside, light on your belly, and onto the upper part of the chest. Shake out. So this is the last Zoom class before the end of the year. So thank you everybody who's either attended live or dipped into the recordings on YouTube. There will be a couple of things scheduled to come out on YouTube over the break, so if you want to sort of dip into these things, then there's an opportunity to do so. We're back with live classes from the beginning of the 5th of January, so we're back to our normal routine now. And have a great festive season if you're not already in the middle of it, if you're watching on YouTube. And I look forward to seeing people again in the new year. Now, to finish, coming back to a favourite theme of mine, some of you have heard me say this many times, but it's worth repeating, and it links with this normalisation of being still, of being calm. It would be great to think we never lost that. For me, that is totally unrealistic, I'm afraid. But Tai Chi has taught me to recognise when I do lose it and how to come back. And this is really encompassed, I think, in this last exercise that we do, coming back to the parallel stance, embrace tiger, return to mountain. Start by letting your hips sink, and then as you push up, again the expansion, pushing your arms out, but then aware of the pull of gravity on your hips, your shoulders, your back, gradually drawing you inwards and downwards, back to the mountain, back to that sense of being settled, awareness of your body, settling into that, and then feeling the push up. So again, although the emphasis is on that returning process, it also contains within it the idea that having returned, that creates the potential to move out again. Embrace tiger, return to mountain. Just one more time. Come back to standing, maybe take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. And then shake out. So once again, have a great festive season, however you choose to spend it and to celebrate it. See you in the new year. Bye.
Thank you, Mike, and you too, and you, Diane, as well. Have a good